Today on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. The 31-foot Contender project is given its final touches and splashed for an offshore test run.
Now this boat's been completely revamped and it's like a brand new boat. Harold's gonna be totally stoked when he sees this thing, and I can't wait to see his reaction.
FS boating editor George Labonte joins Dreamboat owner Tim McKernan aboard his fully restored 1969 Carey Sportsman.
It was easy to see that between the need for him to have a great boat to dive on, a comfortable boat for everybody to sit in, and a cool boat to fish on, this boat was going to work out just right.
A custom bracket is installed on a classic 25-foot Mako.
Adding this bracket to this boat is really going to give it a lot more fishing room and playroom.
And a 34-foot Venture gets an updated look and feel with brand new power on the transom. All coming up on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat.
All right, guys, we're finally here. The 31 Contender is nearing completion. I actually have the guys outside cleaning it up right now. Harold's on his way here. I can't wait for him to see his boat for the first time, almost completely done. This boat came here originally just for some fuel tanks. Next thing you know, it went through a hurricane and had all kinds of other things and options that Harold was excited about doing, and we just went off and morphed into this huge project. Now this boat's been completely revamped and it's like a brand new boat. Harold's gonna be totally stoked when he sees this thing, and I can't wait to see his reaction. There it is.
It looks good, dude.
Looks awesome, huh?
Absolutely.
You got your new ladder on the back?
This is, oh yeah,
See
that's
that
a big
Armstrong ladder?
difference. Big
Isn't that
difference.
awesome?
Yep.
Look at the paint job. Look at that boot stripe fade.
Oh, that's sweet.
The black to silver.
He faded it in perfect.
This thing just popped. I don't think Harold could believe it when he saw it in person. But after seeing it in the sunlight, seeing that metallic pop off of that clear coat, this boat looks incredible.
The rub rails all gone.
Yeah, that's the Taco stainless steel and black rub rail. Came out incredible. Tied everything together really nicely.
It's nice. It came out good. That stripe is bad to the bone.
So after Harold picked his job, it was time to get up inside the boat. So all that wet sanding and buffing combined with that all-grip non-skid really set the inside of the boat off. The whole interior of the boat was buffed. Okay, we didn't paint the inside like we talked about, but we did the non-skid. So all the new non-skid, because you saw the boat when we cut it up. I had to cut all these decks out on all the sides, put the fuel tanks in.
This is nice.
The dash panel, this one's really over the top. This is really bad to the bone.
It's
I know
sick.
you had some equipment when you came here, and you had new equipment, but it wasn't to the level to fit into this dash. So I had to go upgrade it. I got you the bigger Garmin. You've got the new Infinity stereo head unit. This thing is the ticket right here.
I knew it was going to be nice, but not. This is over the top.
So one of the things that I was really excited to show Harold on his boat was the Infinity sound system. He was all about listening to his rock and roll music and turning it up. He had made it a point to me in the beginning of the build, and I think I hit this out of the park. Not only does the Infinity sound system look awesome, flush mounted from the back along with all the rest of the Garmin equipment, but check out how this thing sounds. You've got all the new Infinity speakers. They have lights built into them, and this thing is like retarded. When this boat came in originally, the wiring wasn't all that bad, although there were some mistakes that were made. We want to make sure Harold doesn't have any electrical issues, and that pacer wire is really going to help make sure that's not an issue. Like I said, you had good wiring in the boat to begin with, but there were just things that needed to be cleaned up and changed out. So we've added a couple of breakers for some deep drops that were somewhat rusty and corroded. We added your new pumps down inside. You got all new plumbing in the boat, so you don't have to worry about any hoses or connections. And then you have your storage bins back in. We just cleaned them all up, and then you get all your stuff and hardware put back in there.
Came out good.
It was really hard for me not to notice Harold just turning his head and seeing something new on the boat. I saw him staring at the upholstery, the diamond stitching that we did with the multicolored threads, with the carbon fiber boxing. I think he was really taken away with all of it, and it really finished the boat off nicely.
These bolsters came out excellent. I like the little added black you tied in there on that. That'll be helping some people out for sure. I love the black trim on the glass too. It's sick.
So before we loaded this boat up to get it down to the water, I made sure that I gave Harold a Sure-Hold bucket for detailing and cleaning. This boat looks like $1 million and I want it to stay looking that way. I got something for you to keep this thing like brand new and clean for the rest of your life. There you go.
Sweet.
You got your Sure-Hold cleaning kit.
I'll use it
All
too.
right?
Thank
Everything
you.
you need in there to detail and clean this boat, but keep it looking awesome. And I got you the black bucket to match the rest of the boat too.
Awesome. Down to the last detail.
All right, so as soon as we put this boat in the water, the first thing we had to do was run out the inlet. This is a 31-foot offshore fishing machine. Harold was super psyched to find out what the performance of these 300s were going to do for the boat. Don't forget, this was Harold's boat years before, fixing it up and revamping it with these new motors. So he's got some kind of an idea what the performance should be, but he actually had no idea what these 300s were going to do for this boat. This thing came alive. I mean, it's actually a 60-mile-an-hour boat now. He was totally stoked. Not to mention, listening to that Infinity stereo at 55, 60 miles an hour, clear as can be. We just kept driving. It was really cool. I thought he was going to take me to West End, actually. It was kind of funny.
I'll tell you, I didn't know what to quite expect when we first started. I expected it to be good, but not so far over the top. I mean, the quality and the finish of the boat is much more than I could have imagined. It's going to be the only one like it down in the Keys, I can tell you that.
All right, guys, that's a wrap for the 31 Contender. Harold's got a brand new boat. I just can't wait to see this thing behind his house down in Tavernier. As soon as I get some pictures of that boat with fish, I'm headed to the Keys and I'm going for a fishing trip myself.
When we return, a classic 25-foot Mako was outfitted with a custom bracket in the rigging bay at MCU. This segment brought to you by Engel, the best performance coolers on the market.
Wake up early on your days off. Go on an adventure. Get out on the water. Here at Engel, we live for these days. We think you should spend more time in nature. Let us help you enjoy it. For those that care about quality, who want to get out into the world with a confidence that their gear is going to stand up to the day's challenges, Engel coolers are built for you.
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us as the rigging crew at MCU installs a custom bracket on a classic 25-foot Mako.
So I had a customer from down in Miami reach out to me to tell me that he had recently purchased a 25-foot Mako that actually was repowered, but there were some things that weren't done right, like some of the work in the back of the boat where the motor was mounted on the rotten transom. This guy took this boat out for a fishing trip and almost actually lost this new 4-stroke engine that was installed on the back. So he had the engine removed, had the boat towed up to me, and we had to evaluate this thing. Now, he would have loved to have the full transom enclosed, but because of the budget, he was only able to get the transom repaired and then install the new flotation bracket on the back. Now, that's not really a bad thing. These transoms, when they're cut down like this, are still very functional and they're safe. So really, the whole thing with the guy's budget not working out the best for him isn't the worst thing in the world. He's actually going to be able to enjoy this boat and play with it for a while. And down the road, if he wants to close in the transom, he's going to have that option and still be able to do so.
I just got this 25-foot Mako back from the fiberglass shop. It had a rotten transom in it, and so the fiberglass shop repaired it, sent it back to me. The owner of the boat wanted to add a bracket. Typically on these Makos, we like enclosing the transom all the way across and putting the live well in, but personally, it's okay if you do a lot of live bait, but if you're into more diving and jumping off the back of the boat, this way you can actually just walk right onto the platform, get into the water, easy access instead of having to jump over the live well. So I pre-drilled all the holes on the transom for this bracket. I got all my holes drilled. I'm going to get all my hardware laid out, different length bolts in different spots with my backing washers and everything. It just makes the job go so much quicker. So now I'm going to put 5200 on the transom, around all the bolt holes, around the whole footprint of the bracket. And I like to usually put a smiley face on it too. That makes the boat happy. So now I'm going to get my bracket up in, and I usually like starting from the 2 outside holes on the top. So I'm going to snug them down, and I'm going to get the gap the same on each side. Now I'm going to work towards the middle with the rest of my bolts. I'm going to get them all in, snug down, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to impact them down to a good torque spec. And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to work from the outside, you're going to work to the inside. That way the bracket is straight as possible on the back of the boat instead of being cattywalk one way or the other, because that's going to throw your engine off too, you know. You're going to stand back in your engine, it looks like that engine's on there crooked. So I got that all done. Now comes the messy part, cleaning up the 5200 that oozed out. I can take one drop of 5200 and I can smear it around the world. So you got to have plenty of rags, plenty of mineral spirits. But when I get done, you're going to look at that bracket. That seam of 5200 is going to be perfect all the way around. Adding this bracket to this boat is really going to give it a lot more flotation too in the back, being that it's getting a heavier 4-stroke engine. And it's going to open up that area in the cockpit where usually you have engines hanging in, and a lot more fishing room and playroom.
So by the time Roberto and the guys got done with that transom, I got a phone call from Armstrong to tell me the bracket was ready. I went over, picked it up. I had Steve install it on the back of the boat. I called my customer. He drove up from Miami. He picked his boat up, and he was back on his way to installing his motor and getting back on the water fishing.
When we return, FS Boating editor George Labonte joins Dreamboat owner Tim McKernan aboard his 1969 Carey Sportsman in this week's One Man's Dreamboat segment. This segment brought to you by Power Pole. Swift, silent, secure. Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us for this week's One Man's Dreamboat segment with Florida Sportsman Boating editor George Labonte as we feature anglers who have already launched their dream. Florida Sportsman began these features 30 years ago, and the dreams just keep getting better.
This week, we're in Miami, Florida, visiting with Tim McKernan and his family to have a look at his beautifully restored classic 1969 Carey Sportsman. We were met with a beautiful day in Miami and headed out to see what this Carey Sportsman was all about.
It was about 5 years ago during the summer. Was thinking I wanted to get my daughter out and my wife out just to kick around and do a little snorkeling, maybe spearfishing off Miami. So I started looking for a little project, maybe a 20-footer. And as time went on, I started to get bigger and bigger with the boats. And then I came across this guy, and a friend of my dad's had one of these, and it rode really well. I remember my dad always talking about it, how nice it rode. I pulled the trigger on it, and we got it for $2,500. It needed a lot of work, but that's what I was looking for.
Now, an interesting piece of history about the Carey boats. This is a boat that was originally born in the era of race boats. Although the original deep V design was put to use in the Miami to Nassau powerboat races, sport fishing boats quickly realized how good this was going to be for the boating industry and for people's comfort, and soon all the sport fish boats followed this trend.
The original boat as a sport fish had 2 consoles on either side with a bench in front of them. It was an awkward layout. I'd never seen it before, but it had 440s underneath each one of the consoles and ran as a straight inboard. I took all of that out. Actually, when I got it, the boat had all of that gone already. But I took the foam out, and then I just started ripping out every screw. All the engine mounts were attached to it. What I wanted to do was take it down to the stringers, just the bare hull, get rid of all the foam, all the old filler, and I just grinded it up and then started filling holes. That's how I started out with it. Thinking about where these 440s are and knowing I'm going to cantilever 2 big motors on the back, I was concerned about weight distribution. So I took the fuel tanks, I moved them as far forward as I really thought I could without having the bow plow. And so that ended up making a big difference, and I'm glad I did. So from where those fuel tanks were, the space I had left, I really used that just a practical way to, fill those with boxes and a fish box and place for dive gear, et cetera, bilge.
With the engines out of the boat and the decks off of it, he looked at this boat as a blank slate. Now, after riding with a bunch of friends on center consoles, it didn't take Tim long to decide that this was the route he wanted to go when he laid the boat out as a new boat.
Honestly, that same style, which is kind of popular in a lot of boats now, I just followed. Looked on Craigslist, found a console, found a T-top, found a leaning post. 3 different manufacturers of each one of them, and just had the whole thing put together. The transom was originally just, one piece straight across with no live well, no kickboard. I had the live well and had it made to accommodate the live well with a little place for your feet underneath. The bracket is real important for me because I love to dive, and I've got to have the bracket. And really, I mean, the choices were cut the transom, which I wasn't going to do anyway. So we put a bracket on, and because, again, of the weight distribution, I wanted to find a bracket that really had a full flotation, and Armstrong markets theirs that way, and it really does work well. So I went with an Armstrong bracket. So the cabin was already there on the boat. I did think about cutting the cabin off and making it all open, but I really wanted to make the boat a family boat and have it as versatile as possible. While there is a cabin, I do have the opportunity to just step right up onto the cabin so I can fish around the boat. Yeah, some boats it's a little hard to get up there, but I can get up there easy with this one. The biggest thing I did that I enjoyed doing was taking the bait well that was part of the leaning post, cutting it off, so then I had a place for the cooler under the leaning post, and then taking that bait well, cutting it in half again, and putting it in each corner up there by the cabin. I foamed it, I put a little drink holder, so we fiberglassed that in, and it turned into its own little finished cooler up there.
In the process of taking this 50-year-old classic boat into the 21st century, Tim was able to use modern electronics, modern conveniences and amenities that we didn't have back then. This boat ended up in a place where Elton Carey never could have imagined.
I knew what I wanted. The funny thing is, I was going to do it in a summer. I was ready to get this boat done, spend the summer working on it, and by the next summer, be ready to go fishing. And 5 years later, I finally got it done.
After spending a couple of hours in the beautiful blue water south of Miami with Tim and his family, it was easy to see that between the need for him to have a great boat to dive on, a comfortable boat for everybody to sit in, and a cool boat to fish on, this boat was going to work out just right.
After spending $2,500 on the hull and $140,000 on repairs and custom modifications, the cost of Tim's Dreamboat comes to a total of approximately $142,500. When we come back, a 34-foot Venture is rigged with brand new engines with a custom touch from the factory. This segment brought to you by Pacer Group, marine-grade electrical wire, components, and systems.
For more than 30 years, Pacer Group has been the most trusted provider of wire, cable, and electrical products to the top marine manufacturers. All of our wire and cable is made in the USA to ensure it's the best in the industry. Pacer Group provides the highest quality electrical products to be found in one place. You can order with us at pacergroup.net. Shop online and ship, or pick up your web order within an hour at our Hollywood, Florida location.
Welcome back to Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat. Join us as the rigging crew at MCU gives a 34-foot Venture an updated look and feel with brand new power on the transom.
So I had a really good client reach out to me and tell me that it's time to repower the 34 Venture. Now I did this boat about 7-8 years ago, and this boat recently just ran out of warranty. They were back and forth from the Bahamas all the time, and they're putting a beating on this boat. These motors actually have over 3,000 hours on them, and they just want the peace of mind to have a new motors in the back of the boat. So I placed an order, and I've got some brand new white motors coming. They're actually going to be surprised. They had no idea that I was going to put white motors on this boat, and I think it's really going to set it off.
We just had a good customer bring his 34 Venture in. He's got a pair of Yamaha 300s on it, a lot of hours, a lot of time on these engines, out of warranty, and he wants new engines. First thing that I'm going to do is, disconnect the main engine harness. I'm going to disconnect the fuel hose and battery cables. These are fly-by engines, so you have no control cables. So it's going to be a real quick and easy swap. And then I'm going to get the forklift up to the back, and we'll put my lifting eye on the engine, and then I'm going to unbolt the two top, and then we're going to rack this engine, and we've moved on to the next. Same thing, rack that.
So the guys told me that we got the delivery on these 300 Yamahas that are out in the yard. I wanted to go out and see them for myself. This is the first time I got to see these new white motors, and I was kind of excited to see what they looked like. Once I got outside and I peeled the box away, I noticed these things actually had a little bit of a pearl metallic color to them. They really looked awesome. I was super excited to see these things on the back of the boat. I actually made it a point to tell Robbie to make sure he cleaned and buffed the transom on this boat. These guys are really good friends of mine, and they've been great clients, and I really want this boat to really pop. These motors are really going to set off the back of this 34 Venture, and I can't wait to see this thing out on the water.
So we uncrated these motors. They're white. They got a little pearl in them. I mean, they look fantastic. And for me, totally excited, because you guys saw earlier in the season, I had to take apart a motor so we can paint it white. That's a lot of work, man. And being that Yamaha's offering this, way nicer and way easier for me.
So I usually like doing the port engine first, because the rigging is on the inside, and it's a lot easier to stand on that side without an engine being in the way. We're going to get them up to the back of the boat. I'm going to seal my bolt holes up with 5200, of course. One drop I can smear around the world. I don't like my transoms to leak. So port engine's up, engine's filled with oil, all the rigging's hooked up. I'm going to jump over to the starboard side now. Same thing, real easy. I got all my rigging right in front of me. I don't have to work in between the engines. I'm going to get that one hanging, secured. Well, once I got the engines hanging on this boat, before I put the prop on, I had to put the lower units on. But when you're going on with these lower units, you got to make sure you got to get your shift shaft lined up correctly, because you can miss that and get up there and get it all assembled. Next thing you know, you splash your boat and go to the water. Well, it's not going in forward or reverse because you missed the shift shaft. Yeah, I really think these new white engines on this Venture blended real good with the paint job he has on this, and now we're ready to get out on water, do the break-in on the engines, and get them back to the customer.
All right, so now that those 300s are all installed on the back of that 34 Venture, it's time for it to get out on the water and head to the Bahamas. Now this boat's gonna be back to me in no time. These guys put 100 hours on like every month almost, so it'll be back in here for its regular routine service, but I probably won't be repowering this boat for another 8 years until the warranty runs out again. But I'm sure it's gonna have 4,000 or 5,000 hours on it by then.
Next week on Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat, the crew at MCU cools down a boat built for offshore fun and cruising. FS boating editor George Labonte joins Dreamboat owner Robert Fleming aboard his tricked-out 32-foot Seacraft. And Brian O'Donnell heads down to the Keys to join the owner of the completed 19-foot Cudacraft for a day of fishing. The filming of Florida Sportsman Project Dreamboat has been shot on location at Marine Customs Unlimited. You dream it, we build it. If you've completed or working on your own dreamboat, we'd love to hear about it. Email George at george.labonte@outdoorsg.com, and we might just feature your project on the show.